Hello Stableworks and welcome to yet another video. Now before I go on, about the main course of the thing, I want to address three things which isn't going to come up in the rest of the video. 1. Series 10 starts today. I'm excited. Happy Easter. That's the thing. And 3. Looking at the title of this video, you might think I've run out of ideas. Anyway, let's get started. Now, I think it was either last week or the week before that the Doctor Who costume designer, Hayley Hayley, she posted a picture on Twitter saying that it was a big tease for the 13th Doctor, and said picture is this. There we are. It turned out that it was a sort of late April Fool's joke, which is a bit of a dick move, Hayley, not gonna lie. But I was intrigued before I knew it was an April Fool's joke. I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I can see this working. But it surprised me that a lot of people didn't necessarily like it, because apparently it was too 6th Doctor, and it was a bit too eccentric, a bit too colourful, a bit too, it played with the colours of a child's TV show to catch the attention, be all flash and, ooh. I thought that this was like a close-up of the buttons on the sleeve of a blazer or something, and I thought that would be nice. I think that idea would work, because the material looks very sort of tweedy. It looks as if it belongs to a jacket, very 11th Doctor-like. And I just thought that those buttons, seeing how close they are, were the sleeves of that. And I thought, looking at that picture, I could probably tell a lot about who the 13th Doctor is going to be. Not actor-wise, but personality-wise, what he's going to be like. From looking at this picture, I can say that he is a sort of professional. He's very, he's smart and he's very old-fashioned, but he also has a bit of eccentricity and childlikeness. The material is the old-fashioned thing, and the coloured buttons, how different they are, is sort of the eccentricity. And I don't get why a lot of people didn't like this, because I think if the buttons were like small and they weren't just big old clown buttons, I think it'd really work. And this got me thinking, it did. What should the 13th Doctor actually wear, if not that? Because, I mean, it could be that. She could have just done it as a bit of fun, and then her bosses said, you better fucking cover that up, love. Because costume, at the end of the day, is a very big thing, and it's something very important to a Doctor. It not only does it tell us who they are, but it also tells us it's their icon, basically. It is iconic of their era and their Doctor. It's not just Doctors either. I mean, look at Bill's clothes. When her announcement video came up and we saw what we were wearing, people thought that she was from the 1970s, and we started to build up her character from that. Costume tells a lot about a character, and while I'm not exactly into the fashion side of media, I'm not into designing costumes, I can analyse costumes, and I can tell what they're about. As seen here. Here is me proving the importance of costumes. Now, I think the first thing I thought about when I thought about a Doctor's costume was the 12th Doctor's costume from Series 8, and we all know the quote, as I think it was Stephen Moffat that said, "Simple, stark and back to basics. No frills, no scarves, no messing, just 100% Rebel Time Lord." If you remember that was plastered on t-shirts everywhere, wasn't it? God. And that's very telling. The costume reflected the 12th Doctor in that time very well. He was sharp, he was basic, he was stripped down, he was to the point. What you saw is what you got with the 12th Doctor. There was no distractions, there was no eccentricity, there was no childish foolishness as we've had with previous Doctor. He was very serious and very professional. He's more strict and blunt than previous Doctors. The top button of his crisp white shirt is done up. There's no loose buttons, there's no messy collars, there's no ties hanging a slack. What you see is basic, it's professional, it's straight, it's blunt. And then Series 9 came around, and despite the abrupt and sort of not explained change of character, the costume reflected it perfectly. He was no longer strict, he was more relaxed, he was more carefree, he was more wild. Even his hair was wild. The crisp white shirt had been replaced by creased t-shirts, his waistcoat was replaced by a hoodie, and I think I don't know whether it's tended or not, but if you ever see the 12th Doctor in a hoodie, most times it's never done up all the way, or it's never just open, it's always done sort of halfway up. And that's really telling of the 12th Doctor, I think. I don't know whether it's intentional, but let's just pretend it is. He's not completely open. He is more open than what he was, but he still has his secrets, and he's still restricted. He's still got his limits, and I think that's a really nice way of portraying that. Another sort of dramatic change in costume, in recent years anyway, was the 11th Doctor's costume in the later half of Series 7 from The Bells of St. John. And if you think about that time, it was after the loss of Amy and Rory, and it was evident in The Snowman that this affected him greatly. He was really grieving, so he reinvented himself and he transformed himself in a sort of way to move on. I guess the basic foundations for who he was and who he represented was the bow tie, the jacket, the shirt, but he had changed it slightly, and he'd reinvented himself to become anew. He now had a waistcoat, and I think obviously the major difference that he had was the colour. Now, I love talking about colour, this is great. And it begs the question, why purple? Now, when you think of purple, apart from royalty and all that stuff that can't really be applied to here, you think of it being mystical. It's a mystical colour, it's fantastic, it's strange, which is everything that the Doctor represents. But another thing that purple is, and it's very slight the way it's used this, but it is a heavy connotation, it's also ominous, it's an omen, and not necessarily a good omen. I mean, purple, it's dangerous. I mean, you have to look no further than the Joker, Lex Luthor, Magneto. M. Night Shyamalan uses purple a lot in The Sixth Sense, in Signs with lavender. It's a very strange colour, and obviously a bad omen. And there's a sort of typical rule which happens in film with the colour purple. Basically, the rule is if someone wears purple, they're going to die. April Fools, I'm not dead, because sure. And obviously that's very fitting for when the 11th Doctor wears this costume, his purple outfit, because it's when he changes into this, he's approaching his journey to Drenzalore and eventually his death. Foreshadowing through costume, love it. Now, obviously, costume is very flexible, and not every single piece of fabric that you wear has to say something about you, but if you look at every Doctor, then you can sort of tell their character from their costume. If you've never watched an episode of a certain Doctor, if you look at their costume, you can probably get a sense of who they are. I mean, the 3rd Doctor, he's very old-fashioned and gentlemanly. He like lives by strict sort of moral code and ethics and chivalry. The 6th Doctor, obviously, he's very bold and brash. His costume says, "Look at me." He's very egotistical and narcissistic. The 9th Doctor, after the Time War, he's very stripped back. He's rough and ragged? You know what I'm saying. He's an Ardnot, he's northern. So obviously I can't say what the 13th Doctor should wear, because nobody has any idea of who his personality is. No one knows even who he's played by at this point. But one little thing that I will suggest, because I know the BBC costume department are listening, please, just as a little thing, on the lapel of his jacket or something, a 4-leafed clover pin. How would that be? Because he's the 13th Doctor. Unlucky 13 if he just has a little pin or something to cast away the bad luck. I think that'd be great. A great little nod. This is why I don't design costumes for Doctor Who, because otherwise he'd end up with a Doctor with a suit made out of 4-leaf clovers. He'd have a horseshoe around his neck. On his tattoo would be 777. But yeah, costumes are important to Doctor Who. And I can't wait to see what the 13th Doctor's wearing. I might even do a follow-up video when his costume's announced, or her costumes, probably him though, when his costume's announced, and see if I can guess what his personality would be. That'd be fun, ain't it? That's a video idea. So yeah, costumes, don't wear purple, otherwise you're gonna die.